Rain.
Well, folks, it is 8:01 a.m. where I am sitting on the West Coast. Welcome, everyone. My name is Bobby Mann. I am joined by my amazing co-host today, Michelle Figueroa, who I have been such a fan of. Michelle, would you mind telling folks where you work and what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Bobby, for having me. Honored to join. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and I work at Pima Animal Care Center. And I've been here for 18 years. And currently I oversee the HOS program here. So I'm out in the community, building relationships and making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep pets with families. And, sometimes that takes a toll on all of us seeing those families that we come across, but that's what keeps me going, is making me having that feeling of, we're doing everything in our power to make sure that they don't have to go through some of the things others are going through with just ripping their families apart. And I don't want anybody ever have that feeling. And so that's what keeps me driving, and that's what keeps our staff going, is having those faces come and seeing that smile on their face, that the other option is literally to keep their family pet and not to have to turn it in.
And Michelle, I think what inspires me the most about you and gives you just so much respect is, you said I'm in the community, but you're not just in the community, you are the community. Can you share just where you grew up, how you grew up, and why you're so invested in supporting PAC?
Yeah. I'm born and raised here in Tucson. I am of Hispanic descent and also Native American. And I grew up in the culture of pets were dirty and should live outside. And I struggled with that because that's not what I felt inside. So growing up, our pets were outside, and, at the time, some were tied up, some were locked up in certain areas on the property. And that I struggled with that. And as time went on, this is where I wanted to be. I had to make a connection with animals and made sure that, I felt bad for seeing those things, and I couldn't understand why my culture viewed it as that. And so as time has gone on, Bobby, and being here at PAC, that's what I probably enjoy the most, is getting people to understand that pets are part of your family, and having that culture that I grew up in, understand that they will absolutely give you the unconditional love that we all want. And even for my parents, who again, all animals were outside, currently today have a 10-year-old poodle who lives inside the house, who sleeps on their bed, who is spoiled rotten. And my mom told me, a few years ago, I never thought that I would be shopping at the store for clothes for my dog. So
amazing. I thought she was just going to give her your hand-me-downs,
Right.
Typical immigrant culture mindset, just keep on pushing it down. But Michelle, I think what I respect even more about that is, although sort of your vision has shifted in the way that you love and look at your love with your pets, you still always meet people where they are, right? So when you still do approach people where their pets are living outdoors, it's not ever coming from a place of judgment. You're always talking about, I was there. I had the same vision, as did I. Most of my pets lived outside growing up as well. And although my pets do currently live indoors, I still have lots of friends and family who do choose to keep their pets outside. And to me, it is about just loving your pet and providing the resources it needs, and learning to respect and value that as we move forward. So Michelle, I'm so honored to have you here. Let's keep these questions of the day going. So if folks that just jumped on the call, would you remind them what the question is, and then pick on anybody from the chat that you would like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, question of the day: what flower would you prefer if you woke up as a flower one day? All right, let's see. Who's that lucky winner? Let's go with Katie Brown. Katie, are you with us? She probably might have been having technical difficulties for whatever reason. I was this morning also. So let's all right, let's go with Tracy Brad.
Hi. My grandma was an amazing gardener, and she instilled a love of pansies in me, just because they're small, unassuming flowers, but they have such expressive faces, and they're actually pretty resilient. And when I became old enough to get a tattoo, I actually got some pansy tattoos kind of in her memory.
That's beautiful. I can't wait to be going on a walk with my wife and just look over and be like, look how expressive the faces are on those flowers, and just see what she says to me when I say that. That's amazing.
They're yeah, and they're all different.
Wow.
Amazing. Well, speaking of being all different, I know that our goal really is not just to support the pets that we care for, but it's really to build community with community and the people that live there, because everybody is different. As Michelle and I talked about, they all walk different paths to get to interact with our organizations. And today, I'm so excited because we're really going to be talking about how we invest into the people that help us with the business that we're doing. So we're going to get into our presentation a little bit later, which Michelle will be introducing. But before that, we want to open up the floor for national updates. Whitney, do you have your hand up?
I sure do. First
Amazing.
off, thank you guys for having us last week. For those of you who are here, Every Cat was able to give a presentation, but I wanted to come and give a quick follow-up because we talked about our symposium that's coming up in July, our Every Cat Health Symposium. And registration has now gone live in the last week. So I'm going to drop a link down in the chat. But if you're looking for CE, if you're looking for ways to get involved with cat health and kind of see where Every Cat's money is going into research, then you can go ahead and check out that link. And the virtual and in-person symposium will be on July 7th and 8th.
And shout out to having a master's degree in Zoom etiquette. You use your reactions. Look at you. Holy smokes. Would anybody from the Maddie's family love to shout out what's in the chat for folks that are listening in on the call?
Hi, yeah, this is Amber Frywald. Wanted to let you all know about the Maddie's Million Pet Challenge 4-part webcast series. It's called The Future is 4. And basically the link that I've dropped there in the chat, once you register, you are then registered for all 4 webcasts. The series begins tomorrow, April 12th. That's going to be the section called The Right Place, and Dr. Cindy Karsten and Chunky Aziz will guide us through the framework to allow us to remove decision fatigue and get animals where they need to be. So please join us for the first of this 4-part webcast. Thanks, y'all.
2 of my favorite people tomorrow. I'm excited.
And hi from the other Amber from Maddie's Fund. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to put another Maddie's Fund announcement in the chat, and that was just a reminder that we are having the drawing for these community conversation giveaways. So if you're watching on demand or you're watching us live today, please go ahead and enter the drawing so you can have an opportunity to win some money for your organization.
Thanks, Amber. No one needs to use their reactions, but if you're on video, raise your hand if you like free money. I love me some free money. It ain't hard, folks. Put in your email. They're just giving it away like candy every single month. I promise.
Hey guys, it's Bethany from Best Friends. Reminder that our conference will be this July the 7th to the 9th. Early bird registration ends April 30th. And also thanks to generosity from both Maddie's Fund and Petco Love, we have a robust scholarship program this year. So I will drop a link in the chat. Thanks.
Thanks, Bethany.
Good morning, it's Sharon from Maddie's Fund. Just wanted to remind everyone that you're all welcome to join the We Foster Huddles. It's each Wednesday of the month of April. You can register. We'll once and get all of them. We had a wonderful conversation last week and this Wednesday and the subsequent 2 Wednesdays coming up. It's for the challengers who are participating in the challenge, but everyone is welcome. There's lots of great presenters and tips and tricks for your own programs.
Thanks, Sharon. All right, well, we have a few minutes. I know we had talked about previously, our goal is to really mix up and change the cadence of these calls. Sometimes they're really fast moving and we have 2 to 3 presenters. And sometimes we really want to just slow things down and be really intentional about our topics. And I know today we talked about the conversation that we're going to have, which is about supporting the people that support our work. But I also wanted to take a little bit of time for people to just share with their colleagues something they're excited about at their organization. So we're going to call this wins. So if anybody wants to unmute and share something they're excited about that they're doing at their organization, or put it in their chat, in the chat, this is the time. I'm going to pause and anybody can unmute. Josh, I'm actually going to pick on you because you always have some sort of win, just to get everything warmed up a little.
Fair enough. And one thing just really popped to mind. Last Saturday, we just we just gave away just shy of 300 pet beds to the local community. We had in partnership with the local thrift store that would just open, so it was great, like, to have that many people come in, grab a pet bed. We gave away a lot of supplies like leashes, collars, harnesses, things like that. And then they were able to go shop at the new thrift store. So it was a really exciting event and had a really good turnout. So very happy about that.
Congrats. That's amazing. Donna, can I pick on you about, I know a couple of weeks ago you had that really big event. Would you mind sharing about how exciting that was?
Unmute. Yes, of course. I feel like I've talked about this, but I love talking about it. So I'll talk about it again. No, we, a couple of weeks ago, in partnership with Petco Love and PetSmart Charities and Bissell and Banfield and BI and Data Mars, and the 2 of the most exciting things with our Hidalgo County and the city of Edinburgh, who we contract with, we put on a major mega vaccine and microchip clinic where we gave away free, everything was totally free to the clients, over 5,000 vaccines. We did DHPP, rabies, FERCPs, and microchips. So we basically served 2,000 pets and gave them a combination of all of those things. We had lines for miles, and unfortunately we had to turn a lot of people away, and people were so excited. It was just such a great collaboration with our community to make that happen. And if you know Palm Valley, you'll understand the challenge that we faced with that community collaboration, and to pull off something like this in this magnitude was so much fun and so wonderful. Oh, and Heal House called veterinarians. They're the ones that brought all the veterinarians in. So we don't have our local veterinarians, and they brought in 4 vets, and we just boom, 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 lined everybody up and got them done. We could have tripled the amount of services we provided because the need here is so great. And at first, I was seeing people come through that I'm thinking, you have that little judgment piece in your brain and goes, why are you here getting free vaccines? And then I realized that I started really thinking about this, and we have a community that needs 300 veterinarians. We have 34. So it wasn't just that they needed free vaccines, that they just needed vaccines and they couldn't get appointments to bring their pets in to get the care that they needed. And so we were able to really help the community in doing that. So not only did we do something great for the community, I got a kick in the side of the head to say, stop being judgmental and figure out a way to help these people and bring in additional veterinary care to this community that is so desperately needed.
Look at you, Donna, also wrapping some humility into all that amazingness. Okay, my heart was bursting that entire time that you were talking, not just because of what you were saying, because of also Jesse Sullivan's video. I don't know if anybody else saw that adorable child that was on there, but Jesse, would you mind introducing your kiddo to us? Because they might be one of the youngest next to Tracy's kiddo on this call ever.
Yes, I apologize. She's a little bit of a distraction. I turned on the video and in case I had something to share, and then she noticed herself on the video. So I think what you saw was her delightful face as she realized that she could see her and mommy on the, on the computer.
Hello.
Maggie's too. Maggie, can you wave and say hi?
Hi, Maggie. Thanks for being here today. You're going to be the CEO of whatever you want when you grow up. I can tell.
Oh, yeah, she's showing you her princess sticker that she just got at the doctor. I'm home today with a sinus infection kid. So,
well, thanks for being a part of the party. And more importantly, thanks for bringing Maggie to the show. Appreciate you. Tracy, let's go to you. And then we're going to hop on into our main event.
We just had our bake sale silent auction event this past Saturday, which is our biggest event of the year. And we haven't been able to do it the past couple of years because of COVID. And don't have the totals. I know for sure we've brought in over $2,000 in donations and sales that'll go towards our 16 kittens currently that have been born into rescue. And for our kitten who was injured in a freak accident, and we took him in, and that's going towards his medical bills, which are quite expensive. And he'll most likely end up with a hind leg amputation. But we had an amazing turnout, beautiful weather, worked out. The Easter Bunny was there too, so that kind of helped bring in more traffic. So
I love it. Tracy, I want to, if you don't mind, bring up something that you brought up earlier, because I was really excited to hear about the barriers that your rescue was busting to recruit volunteers. You shared with us earlier, which I feel comfortable saying, that you said that you have a disability, therefore you had additional time to volunteer at your organization. Mm-hmm. How did your rescue accommodate that? Like, were they looking for the specific thing that you're doing, or because of the situation that you were in, they found you something that could fit your needs?
I'm not sure really. Me helping them out with things, and like I'm kind of in charge of the social media marketing aspect, I guess, and just have a way with writing. So they kind of recruited me for that. And I mean, there's another board member who's also disabled, so it just, I don't know, we just kind of help each other out in whatever we can. And if it's too much, it's easy and comfortable to say, well, I need to take a break today. So you can kind of relight that passion of rescue. There's times, you kind of lose that focus of, why am I doing this? This is just too much. It's pointless. And just taking that time to refocus definitely helps.
Well, we appreciate you so much for being here, and I'm gonna keep it moving. So, Michelle, if you don't mind, please introduce our amazing speakers for the day.
Oh, I forgot to mute myself. All right. This week, we'll focus on bringing people in, making connections to save more lives, featuring Jess Roper, National Operations Support Specialist, and Christine Colvin, National Community Engagement Coordinator from Best Friends Animal Society.
That's us. I'll get my screen up and running, and I'll let Jess do the introductions for us.
So good morning, everybody. Like Michelle just said, I'm Jess Roper, National Operations Support Specialist at Best Friends Animal Society. And joining me is my teammate, Christine Colvin. Say hi, Christine.
Hi, everybody. Yes, Christine Colvin, National Community Engagement Coordinator. If you could just give me a quick thumbs up that you can see our screen, I would greatly appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on a Monday morning to talk about our relationships with the people who we want to bring in. So let's get right to it. So most of you probably know a little bit about Best Friends Animal Society, but I would be remiss if I didn't give us a small introduction here. So we were founded in 1984 by a small group of friends who believed that they could make the world a better place through kindness to animals. And they started an animal sanctuary in Kanab, Utah. Today, Best Friends Animal Society is dedicated to ending the killing of dogs and cats in shelters nationwide by the year 2025. But we know we can't do it alone. And that's why we partner with organizations and individuals, including nearly 3,300 network partners. Now, probably many of you on this call are representatives of organizations that are network partners, but I did just want to extend an invitation to anybody who is not a network partner or who maybe doesn't know if their organization is a network partner. Please do reach out. We'd be happy to put you in touch with our network partner team if that's something that you're interested in learning more about. You can also check out bestfriends.org/2025, where you can view our pet life-saving dashboard, where you can look at data for every state, every community, every shelter around the country to see where your community is. So moving right along, what do we want to talk about today? So in a community-supported sheltering model, of course, there are so many different ways to plug people into your sheltering or rescue operation, right? But for the purposes of this presentation on this Monday, we really want to focus in on the power of those people who have answered your call to action. So namely your foster caregivers, your adopters, your volunteers, and other community advocates who care about your organization and the animals in your care. And I really want to take a moment to kind of zoom out and think about who these people are. So we may think of donors as people who give us money or people who give us supplies, in-kind donations, but our foster caregivers, adopters, volunteers, they're also donors. They're giving us something extremely valuable. They're giving us their time, they're giving us their expertise, they're housing our animals in their care, right? And so without the support of these folks, we're gonna have to spend our staff time, our budget on those items, right? So from a practical perspective, not only do we want to bring these people in because we care about them, but because they can do so much for our organizations. So let's move right along. And I want to take you back in time to about 9 years ago when I first got involved in animal welfare. So I had just moved back to Houston, Texas after graduate school in the Northeast. And I was extremely naive at the time about what was happening in the animal sheltering world. I grew up in Austin, Texas. Austin was celebrating no kill at that time. And again, in my ignorance, I figured no kill was standard. That must be happening nationwide. And so when I came across a stray dog, when I was driving around Houston, I figured, there must be a lot of services and resources out there to help me help this dog. So I saw this dog. He was clearly in distress. He had open infected wounds, hair loss, visible tumors. And it was a really hot day for those of you who have been in Texas. It was not a great situation for this dog to be out in the road in the heat of the day. So I pulled over. I thought I'll give him some water. Hopefully he's got a tag on his collar. I can call that number, get him home, call it a day, keep going. But very quickly, I realized that this dog needed help immediately. And I wasn't just going to be able to spend a few minutes on it and go on with my day. So I, Googled around, tried to find places that would be able to help me, shelters that were open. I came across a private shelter that was open for intake that day, and we drove over. I went into the lobby, and the lobby attendant was very honest and direct with me. And I'm really grateful for that. She said, this dog has a skin condition. This dog is old. This dog is not adoptable. This is not a dog that we can place up for adoption, but we would be happy to euthanize him for you if you'd like. I was utterly shocked. That was not what I was expecting at all. And I realized very quickly that now this dog was my responsibility. So I found a vet clinic that was open on a Saturday. I took him there, got him vaccinated, got him a nice medicated bath, got him started on antibiotics, and Hank became my dog. And he lived with us for another 4.5 years after that day in June of 2013. And that day changed my life. I had, again, just come back from graduate school. I was going to be teaching at a university, and it completely changed my direction. I started fostering. I started learning everything I could about what was going on in my community's animal services. I started volunteering for the rescue group where I fostered. And eventually I started working with my local municipal shelter, Harris County. And eventually that led to a job at Best Friends Animal Society. So this one moment in time where I encountered this dog and realized how few resources were out there for animals and people who love them, really changed the course of my life. It lit my spark and it led me to where I am today. And I know Christine also wants to talk a little bit about how she got to this point.
Yes, thank you, Jess. And unlike my colleague here, Jess, my trajectory into animal welfare was not as direct. And it all started with me seeking a career. I'd always wanted to be in film production somehow in Hollywood as a Los Angeles native. And I found my way cutting my teeth into Hollywood as a feature film casting associate. No, I did not take this photo, but I love this. This is from a 1961 casting session for a cat actor for a film based off of an Edgar Allan Poe story. So anyways, loved the creative process, loved working with the people. I've always been a people person, but I really loved the taking a description on paper and fleshing it out into an actual person and meeting the people, finding the right person for that right role. Ultimately though, wasn't where I was deciding I wanted to be. It wasn't speaking to me. And that is when I had one of those epiphany, like aha moments, was I needed a career where I knew I was making a difference in my community. I wanted to have a mission. I wanted to have that drive. I want to be working with people who are working to solve for problems in their community, in their neighborhoods. So I was able to find my way back to an organization that helped me grow greatly in my youth, which was Girl Scouts. I became a program specialist and ultimately STEM program manager with Girl Scouts of Greater Los Angeles, where I really found a spark for working with volunteers. I loved working with those who wanted to be of service, who wanted to give, who wanted to help others grow, who wanted to develop leadership. Again, helping their community by taking action locally. So that is something, like I said, that lit my spark. That was that aha moment for me for my career trajectory, that I wanted to be involved in a mission-driven organization, working with people who want to make the world a better place, who want to take action locally, not just say they want to do it, but actually take action. And then I've always been a pet lover. I've always had pets in my life, except for 2 years in college. That was sucky, but college will do that. But otherwise, I've always had animals at home in my life. And when an opportunity to join LA County Animal Care and Control as a volunteer coordinator arose, I was jumping at the opportunity. I couldn't see anything more magical than working with volunteers who want to work with animals. This is perfect. And working in a municipal shelter, you learn lots of things. You learn a lot of the challenges. You see a lot of those day-to-day struggles. But as that people person, as my boss would always remind us, you are the sunshine people. You are the ones that others are looking to keep the boat upright and to keep smiling, even though things are kind of tough. But it was working. You had to find a way to continue passing that sunshine along. So then I am so thrilled to have found my way here to Best Friends, to be on a team with Jess Roper and everybody else here who wears this bright orange. I get to work with remote volunteers across the nation, affecting change in their local communities. So again, like I said, that is my sidewinding way into animal welfare, but I was able to identify through all of that amalgamation of experiences. My spark is, like I said, working with others who I can enable and empower to make change in their communities because they're service-minded and they want to be a part of that improvement, a part of that change. So Jess has shared her why, I have shared my why. We would like to hear what your why is. Why are you here? Can you think of a time, maybe it was a person, an experience, maybe it was like me, or it was like a collection of experiences. Maybe it was your why is like Jess, where you found this beautiful boy named Hank and you jumped into action. Can you identify that moment that was your spark, that you continue to let that spark light your way now in animal welfare? We'd love to hear your sparks, your whys in the chat. So please flood us with your moments, if you're comfortable sharing, of course. I should have plugged in some music while we waited for sparks.
Trudy says she lives in Houston and cats kept showing up at her house. Absolutely. I know so many folks in Houston that dedicate themselves to trapping and, of course, by neutering, vaccinating, returning, because there are so many cats out there. Thank you, Trudy. Now volunteering at the local shelter in college and no one her age was involved. Yep. Dr. Sergeson talking about why she became a veterinarian. Little kitten named Bear.
Now I want to see a photo of Bear. I'm one of those people, like whenever someone's like, oh, my dog is in the room, I'm like, what's their name? How are they doing? did they get a snack? Like I want to know. I want to know these details.
Carissa, I love you talking about how you can't spend all your money doing this, right? That's how I felt when I started volunteering. I realized I could not foster all the animals that I wanted to foster. So I was like, I'll volunteer. I will help other people foster. I will, give them my guidance and my help so that they can do what I can't do, which is foster every animal. Yep, lifelong embers. Exactly. Can't remember when you didn't care for sick critters. Yep, saved a dog in a pet store. Yeah, like all of these stories, right? Somebody cared enough about an animal to take action, to do something, and and blossom into a career, or continuing to volunteer, getting involved. Took a job after market crash. So we love hearing all about this. Yeah, Amber, you found an injured baby pigeon and started volunteering.
And Valentine, I do love that you kind of shifted it of not more of a spark, but more of a lifelong ember, that you kind of had this burning passion within you for as long as you can recall. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. Yeah, sometimes a spark is kind of seen like an explosive moment, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's always been that like, I have to do this. I have to fix this. That little burning, nagging ember, like you said, but in a good way, a good nag. Oh my gosh, so many great. Wow. Thank you for participating. This is amazing. Oh, champ. Okay, Jess and I can get lost in talking about all these for hours, but we only have 20 minutes, so we're not going to do that.
Keep sharing your stories, but I know Christine wants to talk about, like, why are we asking you this? Why are we telling you about our story? Why are we asking about your story?
Yeah. It's so important. Understanding a spark in your spark, it's helpful for you to make sure that you're connecting with your audience, with your volunteers, your community, making sure that you can also draw them in that way, and of course genuinely support them, which ties into a people-centric philosophy, which we find so very important to make sure your volunteer engagement, your community engagement is genuine.
Yeah, exactly. So again, why are we telling you about this? Why are we asking you to think about what brought you to this industry, right? It's because every person that raises their hand and answers your call to action has a reason for doing so. And ultimately that reason is they care about animals, right? They heard that you need adopters. They heard that you need foster caregivers. They heard you need somebody to volunteer for them. And they took the time to reach out to you to say, yes, I can do that. I want to do that, right? And so that's what we mean when we say people are the solution. We can have the best staff and facilities in the world, but at the end of the day, we can't achieve our mission if we don't have those people, those adopters, fosters, volunteers who are going to help us move animals out of our facility, out of foster care, into loving homes of their own, so that we can keep saying yes to more animals in need. And we're also honoring the fact that those people, just like us, care about animals and want to be involved with an organization that's doing everything they can to help animals. So that means finding a way to say yes to those people. And now we're not saying that every single person and every idea they have is going to be the right fit for your organization's needs or priorities at that time, right? We're not going to just say yes to everything that anybody wants to do, but we do want to think about out of the box ways to be able to say yes to these people. Think about what brought them to your organization and find a fit for them to be able to get involved, right? And so think about not just this moment when somebody reaches out, but the long term. Even if they're not able to do something for your organization right now, doesn't mean that you don't want to develop that relationship so that down the line they may be involved, right? And we'll talk about this throughout this presentation, but really think about an approach that's relationship based rather than transactional. So instead of thinking this person is adopting this one dog, this person is fostering this one litter of kittens, this person is with a volunteer group for their college and they're just going to be here one day. Don't think about it that way. Think about how you can develop that relationship so that this person feels included in your organization and is going to keep coming back. They're going to keep talking about your organization. They're going to be word of mouth marketing for you. And again, you never know what that's going to lead to, whether that person comes back and adopts from you later. They tell their neighbors, their coworkers, et cetera, about your organization. And especially don't forget about your adopters. I know it's really easy to think of them as a one-time interaction versus a foster caregiver or a volunteer, but your adopters are really your best ambassadors because they have a piece of your organization in their family, right? So what do we talk about with family, friends, coworkers, literally random people on the street, right? Our pets. And so, you know, if somebody has a great experience with your organization when they're adopting, fostering, et cetera, they're going to talk about that. And when somebody else wants to acquire a pet, they're looking for a foster opportunity, they want to volunteer with an organization, they're going to be more likely to choose you because they've heard from somebody they trust that they had a positive experience. So again, adopters are not just that one touch point. That adopter 6 months down the line, a year down the line, maybe they want to foster, maybe they want to adopt another pet, maybe they're going to recommend you, maybe they're looking for a volunteer opportunity because they had so much fun and a positive experience spending time with you and your organization. And Best Friends, we actually make all of our adopters members of our organization. And that's as simple as we have a checkbox on our adoption matchmaking surveys that says, would you like to receive emails from us? And if they check that box, then we're going to stay in touch with them. We're going to keep them up to date about what we're doing, ways for them to get involved. And we're going to celebrate with them. You know, when their pet has their adoptiversary, we're going to send them an email and say, you know, congratulations, a year ago you adopted your pet. So again, just thinking about every person that you have touch points with and including them in your organization and making them feel welcome. So next slide, please. Yep. So what can we do to make sure that the people who answer our calls to action really do feel included and supported within your organization? You know, so many times we are reactive instead of proactive in our programming, right? We have so many things on our plate. There's so much going on. We're just reacting. But the best gift that we can give to our supporters and our staff is programs that are organized and structured so that people know what they're supposed to do and when, right? So this creates a solid ground for both staff and volunteers to grow into their role. We want to make sure that people understand how to get involved, what are their expectations for joining a role? What is the onboarding and training going to be like? What are the expectations when they're actually performing their volunteer role or being a foster caregiver? Having written documentation about what is happening with your programs, you know, your policies, SOPs, that's going to help everybody just understand what's going on and what they're supposed to do so that there's less, confusion or potential conflict when there's a lack of clarity. And remember, nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And so, you know, again, don't discount somebody just because they can't do the thing that they showed up to do, or they're not necessarily the right fit for the role that they stepped into. So think about your staff, right? If somebody makes a mistake as a staff member, you're not just gonna, in most cases, discount them immediately, show them the door, right? You're gonna talk to them about what happened and how they can do better in the future. And think of your volunteers and your foster caregivers like staff in that way. You want to make sure that they have training and onboarding so that they know what they're supposed to do. But you also need to give them supervision and management like you would staff, so that if they do make a mistake, a conversation happens. And it's not just like a stone wall that you put up and say, you know, that person didn't do the right thing. We're not dealing with them anymore. You know, there may be cases where you do have to, disconnect from that relationship. But in most cases, a misunderstanding, confusion can turn into a different role for that volunteer, a different type of foster caregiver, et cetera. And make sure staff as well, not just management, understand how to have relationships with volunteers, how to do volunteer management, how to have those conversations about performance. So again, that the dialogue is open, communication is happening, and people are set up to succeed. So again, they can ignite that spark within them and keep connecting back to the reason that they came to your organization. And I know Christine's going to talk a little bit more about some out-of-the-box ways to engage your volunteers.
Yes, and first I like to actually touch back to what Jess just said about having conversations and empowering staff to have conversations. Something that is a guiding principle here at Best Friends is kindness. And sometimes kindness can be challenging. Sometimes kindness is having those tough conversations and allowing for that open communication. Because so often we could see kindness just as a happy, fuzzy situation. But sometimes the kindest thing is bringing up the issue that's going on. making it so that it's a level playing field for everybody to have that conversation so they can have those moments to grow from. So yes, as a lot of us have learned over the pandemic pivot, that remote work is possible for staff. We can accomplish quite a lot of things via a computer. Of course, there are certain things we cannot do like over a computer, like caring for the animals in our facilities. But we have found ways to utilize technology to keep staff involved. But what about volunteer engagement over remote opportunities? There are some really great ways that you can use to keep your volunteers engaged. I don't know what other states are doing, if you guys are back to full allowing volunteers in public back to your facilities, or if you've kept some of the pandemic shifts that you've put into place, like appointments or minimal volunteer participation. But think of ways that you can use technology to still engage these volunteers, still engage your community members. Some great options. We use Teams a lot here at Best Friends. A free option that's also fantastic for volunteer and community engagement is Trello. If you haven't used it, it's kind of like a bunch of digital Post-it notes that you can move around and communicate with people on. Again, free option. And it's really useful for things like communicating animals that are eligible for foster placement. You can use it as your onboard ramp for training your new volunteers, because you can attach a whole bunch of files. Project management and task assignment. That's how we use it actually for our virtual volunteers, as you're reading on this slide, is that remote volunteer team I mentioned during my introduction. They utilize Trello boards to understand the tasking that needs to be accomplished. Our life-saving centers say, hey, we need help with this spreadsheet. They put it onto a Trello board. Then the volunteer can hop to the Trello board, grab the task, work on it. So that frees up our staff's time to do the things, like I said, that only they can do in person. So again, I know you're probably thinking, well, that takes a lot of time. We'll talk about that in the next slide. There is a time investment that you do need to do, but it's going to pay off down the road and not that far down the road. So maintaining relationships with other supporters, like adoption follow-up, adoption appreciation, volunteer appreciation, foster mentorship, that is stuff that your volunteers can do. I understand as well that you might have concerns of like, well, don't know about being able to allow volunteers access to our computers. There might be red tape. Sometimes it's even a struggle getting staff onto the internet, right? I totally understand that. But like Jess was mentioning the adoptiversaries. That's a way that you could engage your volunteers. Let's say you could speak to whoever runs your animal management system, maybe it's Chameleon. Speak to them and say, hey, can you print me out a list of whoever adopted 1 year ago, just names and emails? Hand that to a volunteer and have a volunteer send an email out to those people. And that is that relationshiping. That's taken a minimal time on your effort. That is that relationship circle that we were talking about, making it relationship versus transaction. And you're re-engaging those people to bring them back into your organization, into your what's going on, to give them the information of how your facility is doing now, how your organization is doing now. So you're giving them more access, you're giving your volunteers training. That equals to more lives saved, which is, of course, what we all want, right? Real-time communication is super important. Of course, communicating in general is just something we all need to do. But sometimes we need to get information out right away. And don't delete those emails. Don't divert from the email path. Emails are still very important. However, studies do show that people don't tend to check their personal emails all the time like we do, right? Like we're always refreshing, or we're getting constant pings of our emails and we're reading them. But studies have shown that people tend to check their personal emails, where these emails are foster pleas or volunteer updates are going more on the weekends, which means those time sensitive matters, maybe like a foster plea or, hey, we need more newspaper for our kennels, that might be landing in an inbox that's not going to be read for days later. So one of the programs that we use is called Avocado, like avocado with chat in it. And that is a rapid messaging tool, SMS. That's how we broadcast out real-time, quick, time-sensitive communication. And we can talk to our people and say, hey, we have 5 bottle babies, who's interested in taking them? And we can text it directly to our bottle baby foster list, and people can respond in real time, because everyone's got their phone in their hands all the time, right? Like your text messages are going to come through. You might not have your emails to push. And that's been really helpful for us to communicate foster pleas, for transport needs, And also Avocado accepts incoming inquiries as well. So we can tell people, hey, if you're interested in learning more about kittens, text this code word basically, and we'll reply back with a whole volley of communication to give you information on what to do when you find this kitten. Using this is also very important for sharing your impact in real-time communication. We're often using our social medias as, again, we SOS, right? It's urgent, we need help, but if everything is urgent, nothing is urgent, it's very easy for us to slip into the put it out there, we need action immediately. Yes, be transparent. We need to be transparent to really effectively communicate what we need. However, if we're constantly having that red siren light on, it's going to be hard for the community. We might understand internally what's going on, but the community is not necessarily going to understand what happens or why it's happening. So giving a little more context to that, why we're sharing of, hey, we need 6 animals placed into foster because we only have 7 open kennels. So here's what we need. Here's the why. That's why it's time sensitive. And that gives people a bit more of a solid ground for them to take their action on, to support your organization or to share out that plea. And as Jess said earlier, relationship versus transactions. You can use the text messaging, email, whatever you use, find a way to circle back to your community supporters and establish some kind of relationship. I know relationship can be like a big word and it can be intimidating, but even just touching base with them, checking in once a year, like Jess said, on the adoptiversary, or maybe they submitted a volunteer application, but they didn't follow up on their training. 6 months down the road, hey, we noticed you submitted your application, but we didn't get finished. How are you doing? Check back in. It might be a better time. Their life circumstances might have changed. Finding ways to, again, re-engage with those people. And I know, like I said earlier in the previous slide of, yes, it does take time. And like Jess said, yes, this is more of a proactive than a reactive approach. And everyone is struggling. Everyone's busy as heck and trying to find the time to take care of the things in front of you, right? So I really do challenge you to maybe carve out a half hour a week or an hour a week to find ways to invest in your community, invest in your volunteers, invest in something that's proactive that will serve you down the road. So maybe it is setting up that email list. Maybe it's getting a very trusted volunteer. I'm sure you have the person in your mind already, a very trusted volunteer, computer access, so they can send those emails or make those phone calls or enter in records for you. Start that ball rolling. You're not going to solve everything overnight, right? But so I know we started to focus just now on challenges. Let's reframe those. Let's turn those challenges into action items. And challenges need creativity in this world. Sometimes, of course, the simplest solution is the best. Often it is, but sometimes you need to take a creative route to get to that simple solution. So we're going to do an exercise called but and so. And I'm going to ask you guys to put some things in the chat. I'm really curious. Let's say we'll do an example of, we would love to do more adoption events, but our staff is super busy. Okay, you just closed that. You just made a statement of, we want to do something, but here's our problem. We're going to change that but into an and so. We want to do more adoption events and our staff is too busy. So now we're going to try to spitball, find a solution. So perhaps in this situation, this but and so maybe we could start off with a simple solution of creating an adoption promotion code or something, or putting on the social media blast of, hey, large dogs are free this weekend or something, instead of something minimal, again, to get that ball rolling. But this but and so is a good way to get you out of that, to get you over that hurdle that you might just be stuck on. Again, you don't have to do everything at once. Don't think you're going to solve everything overnight, because none of us are. But also, while you're doing this, you're going to think about ways to include others, because like I said, we're not all going to solve this overnight. No one person's going to solve this overnight. I just given a very adoptions focused but and so situation. Jess, I would love to hear if one popped to mind for you of a but and so. That's a different variety.
So our whole National Foster Care Support Program, our virtual volunteer program that developed about a year ago, was a response to a but. So as many of you probably did as well, during the pandemic, we really had a push for foster. We wanted to get animals out of our facility into foster homes, not only because foster is great, but because of that unknown, right? Our staff going to be out, our volunteers going to have access to be able to help us care for our animals. And so we really need to do this. But as I'm sure everyone on this call is thinking, finding new foster caregivers is constantly a challenge, right? That's not something we can just wave a wand and now suddenly we have all these foster caregivers. So we want to get as many animals as possible into foster care, but foster recruitment, foster retention, managing all those foster caregivers, that's challenging. That takes a lot of work. And so we put together this program where our volunteers could help us expand foster care and life-saving by working in roles like a foster mentor, being that first point of contact for our foster caregivers if they have questions or need support, doing data entry so that our staff is not spending their time looking at a medical record and typing in everything from that medical record into our shelter management system. That looked like volunteers starting to process adoptions for us remotely. And so by inviting those volunteers in, they were so excited to have something to do, especially, this was about a year ago. At the height of COVID, people still couldn't come in and volunteer in most cases. And so they were really looking for a way to stay involved and continue to save lives without necessarily being in a facility. And so again, we turned that from, but recruiting fosters and maintaining foster caregivers is so hard to, and so we are going to get these volunteers to help us do it. And again, taking it back to the beginning, we invested in these people because they had that spark. And through a lot of our volunteer engagement activities, we do virtual happy hours with our volunteers. We spend time with them whenever they visit us in our program cities. And we get to hear about what brought them to our program and what keeps them coming back. And we feature that in spotlights in our newsletters and so on to really honor the fact that they cared enough to spend their time, spend their skills with us. And we've invested in them. And that's what we really invite you all to do as well, is think about how can you invest in those people, not only, all people that are involved with you, but specifically those people that have come to you offering their help, again, answering your call to action and thinking about developing relationships with these people so that they can continue to be involved with your organization for the long term and be your partners in life-saving. So we wanted to leave some time and space for questions because we know that you don't want to just hear from us. We don't know exactly what you want to hear about. So we wanted to save this space for talking about anything that you all would like to hear more about. So I know we've had some questions about avocado, and if anybody would like to unmute and ask their question, we are happy for them to do that as well.
I'm reading one of the, Anne Valentine put, a butt and so. This is awesome. So I love seeing interaction. I'm one of those audience participation people. So although speaking to audience participation, I also wanted to say, be like Jess, not like Christine. Both of us are always on these Monday calls, but Jess always has her camera on. She's always like in that front row, camera on, interacting. I'm lurking in the back on mute, off camera. Of course, as Bobby says, always come to these meetings as you are, right? So the important part is attending, on, off, whatever for the camera. But there's something to be said about being on camera and having that. That's another real-time communication moment, is you're able to like see the facial communications, connect with people. Yeah.
Christine says, Bobby says, come how you are. And so I'm going to be off camera and drink my coffee in the background. I love it.
That's me. Yes, that is absolutely me in the background with my coffee, with my dogs, listening, not on camera.
I know we've had a few questions about avocado, and so just calling those things out for those who aren't reading the chat. At least for Best Friends, we pay avocado per message. And so we bulk buy the amount of messages we think we're going to use. And of course, Best Friends has 7 different life-saving facilities around the country. So we use quite a bit more than most organizations are probably going to use. And the interface for it it's a web browser. Or it can be single sign-on, but it's not tied to a phone specifically. You can access it from any web browser. It also has various integrations. So for instance, it integrates Microsoft Teams, so we can view it right there in our Teams dashboard, responding to messages right there live. receiving messages, and any staff member can jump in and use it.
Avocado pricing. Are we breaking avocado? Please don't break it. We need to use it.
It was, you know, the one thing that I thought about is how are like the monetizing masters best friends not having a code for all of these shelters that are signing up right now? Because y'all are so good at getting through the business.
Wondered about that. I'm like, we need a friends of best friends discount for.
Yeah, this has been so amazing. I do personally have a question. So we have so many organizations that are in so many different places that want to really grow their relationships. But if I was a shelter that takes in 1,000 animals and have 10 staff, and I'm just overwhelmed with the idea of even measuring growth and support of my volunteers and just all my stakeholders, like, where do I start? Like, what do I look at? What do I pay attention to know where I'm at? So that way I can figure out where I need to go.
Jess, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bobby. And I guess what I would do is just try to invite those folks in that have reached out to help you and start having a conversation with them. Like, you know, what can they do to help? Where did they see opportunities to get involved? And then think about crafting position descriptions for the types of roles that you want them to help you with, right? And so, of course, there's always this balance between, you know, what do our volunteers and foster caregivers want to do, and what are the priorities and needs of our organization, right? And so that's a balance that we have to strike. But these folks may have out of the box ideas that you didn't think about because they're coming in from the outside, right? They're not in the weeds with you. So that's where I would start, is just, you know, gathering those trusted volunteers and foster caregivers that you already have. You know, even if you don't have maybe a formal foster program, or maybe your volunteer program isn't robust, there are those people in your community that care about your organization. And just, again, bringing them in, talking to those people, and then formulating a plan forward, right? Creating a strategy where you can integrate more people into your operations is going to take stuff on your plate, off your plate. And as Christine mentioned, like, it can feel impossible to invest in that training time and onboarding and writing the position description and making sure you have some kind of structure, right? But taking that little bit of time to get organized is going to pay off so many hours in the future when you can just offload things from your plate onto these trusted volunteers and foster caregivers that are there to help you. So again, really trying to get out of that reactive mindset and say, okay, I know I have a million things to do today, but I can take 1 hour out of my week to start working on this structure for my volunteer program, for my foster program. And then again, let those volunteers help you build that structure, right? So going back to my own story, I started as a volunteer foster coordinator. That was my first role in animal welfare. So again, I was not staff. I was just a foster caregiver who was really involved and wanted to do more. And so the staff at the rescue said, do more. You know, they empowered me to do that. They said, you know, can you answer emails? Can you answer phone calls? Can you help us place animals with people? And we were able to grow that program because we kept getting more volunteers, you know, more volunteer foster coordinators, more volunteer event runners.
That's amazing. I have one more question for the both of you before I toss it over to Michelle to close us out. But speaking of like the ability to do more, what are your thoughts on minimum requirements? Often shelters are like, well, if I'm going to invest into you, you all have to give at least X. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I understand the background of that is because you're worried about wasting each other's time, right? Like, that is, I get it. Time is valuable. However, that if I feel like saying only join our program if you can give 20 hours a week is a barrier. Just like everyone's trying to reduce barriers for adoption, reduce barriers, right? That's a barrier for a community member who wants to help you. Their why, their spark is they want to be involved. So maybe I'm not necessarily saying remove all barriers and just say, hey, come on in, walk our dogs, do whatever you want. But maybe reducing it a bit to make it a bit more obtainable, inclusive. And also, I'd like to tie back to your first question, Bobby, is maybe that's one of the metrics that you can research into first. Like, I think one of the things you mentioned was numbers. Like, how do we measure our impact, or how? Okay, so maybe this is a way that you could find out. Like, one of the first numbers that you could dive into, because you can't change what you don't measure. So measure how many volunteers are coming in, how much time they're actually serving, get the reality of the situation versus what your perceived reality is of it, and go from there. If each of your volunteers are serving 6 hours a month, okay, maybe make that your minimum, or make your minimum 4, and then build off of that. So find something that you would like to get those metrics off of that you can grow, that you can then snowball into something else of, okay, we've tackled the volunteers. Let's look into how many animals, like length of stay. Let's look into animals that are getting adopted. When are they getting adopted? Anyways, that could be a whole nother conversation.
I love all of this so much. It really takes my mind to the place of we want to allow people to have a test drive of our organizations, and just how we got so excited about letting people foster, because it's a short-term, low barrier commitment. Remove those timeframes on how much people are required to come to your organization. To the both of you, I'm so grateful for this conversation. Michelle, I'm going to toss it over to you to close us out into the week.
Yes, thank you, Jess. Thank you, Christine. I loved how it was people are a solution. How do we help them help us is what I got, and I loved it. Also, something to think about, and I want you guys, thank you for all joining us, and thank you, Bobby, for allowing me to co-host with you. It's an honor, but it's something to think about, as this is what triggered it for me, our why. But do we have one why, two whys, or three whys? Think about that. Throughout our career, there is always a why. And it touched me, and I didn't expect to get that emotional feeling on a Monday morning, but thank you, Christine. And thank you, Jess, for doing that for me on a Monday morning. See you guys soon.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, our emails are in the chat. Feel free to reach out.